It's 2008, and Apple just revealed the MacBook Air. This wasn't just any laptop. Steve Jobs famously pulled it out of a manila envelope on stage, showcasing how impossibly thin it was. It was a game changer that set a standard for portable laptops everywhere. For years, MacBooks stayed on top, and were the go-to choice if you wanted something powerful but lightweight. It was more than just a laptop. It was a perfect blend of form and function that only Apple could deliver. But then, as the mid-2010s rolled around, things started to change. Apple's obsession with thinness went to new extremes, and that's where problems started creeping in. One of the biggest missteps? The butterfly keyboard. Introduced with the 12-inch MacBook in 2015, and later expanded to other models, including the MacBook Pro in 2016. On paper, it was supposed to be revolutionary, a new mechanism that was slimmer and provided a more stable typing experience, but in practice, it turned into a nightmare for some users. The butterfly keyboard was marketed as an upgrade, something that would improve typing precision and make the laptop even sleeker. But the reality was far from ideal. The keys were incredibly fragile, meaning that the slightest speck of dust could cause a key to malfunction. Users quickly expressed their frustration. Reports started flooding in about sticky keys, inconsistent feedback, and complete failures. The keyboard was so problematic that it sparked a wave of outrage, leading to class action lawsuits and a massive repair program. It felt like Apple had sacrificed usability for aesthetics, leaving loyal customers feeling betrayed. Apple responded by offering free repairs, but they continued to push the butterfly mechanism in new models, as if ignoring the issue would make it go away. The disconnect between Apple's design goals and their user needs began to grow more apparent, and it was hard not to feel that the company had lost sight of what made the MacBook great in the first place. Then came the Touch Bar, introduced in 2016 on the MacBook Pro. This feature was intended to revolutionize how we interacted with our laptops. Positioned above the keyboard, the Touch Bar replaced the function key with a sleek touch-sensitive strip that promised a more dynamic and customizable experience. But in practice, it was more of a gimmick than a game changer. At first glance, the idea seemed intriguing. Imagine having the ability to adjust volume, brightness, or access shortcuts specific to the app you were using, all at your fingertips. However, reality quickly set in. The Touch Bar lacked the tactile feedback users relied on from traditional function keys. Typing became a guessing game, as reaching for the bar meant taking your eyes off the screen, leading to countless misinputs and frustrating delays. Many developers weren't exactly racing to create applications that fully utilized the Touch Bar's potential. Many popular programs didn't even support it, leaving users stuck with a feature that felt half-baked. Instead of enhancing productivity, the Touch Bar often got in the way, complicating simple tasks that could have been accomplished with a single keystroke. For those who relied on MacBooks for their daily workflow, this was a significant step back. The only unexpected benefit was that users could actually skip through YouTube ads by scrolling through them with the Touch Bar. But even with that, an ad blocker would have been much cheaper than an expensive MacBook Pro. It became obvious that the Touch Bar wasn't the future of computing, but rather a gimmick that distracted us from what made the MacBook feel special. Then, the MacBook hit another turning point. Determined to make their laptops as slim as possible, Apple began removing the ports that made the MacBook so versatile. Overnight, the USB-A ports, SD card readers, and HDMI connections were all replaced by USB-C. Sure, it was a clean, minimalist design, one that aligned with Apple's vision of the future, but for longtime users, it came at a serious cost. Need to plug in a standard USB drive? You'd need an adapter. Want to connect that external monitor? Another dongle. Apple's pursuit of a thinner device was creating headaches for users who found themselves with a sleek laptop that suddenly couldn't connect to much without accessories. The introduction of USB-C was bold. It was the new faster and more versatile standard that offered better data speeds and universal capability. But going all in on USB-C felt like Apple was prioritizing style over practicality, leaving users with a ton of adapters and dongles just to achieve basic functionality. The absence of the SD card slot in particular frustrated photographers who once relied on the MacBook as a portable editing machine. Apple was going with the less is more philosophy, but this time the less just didn't sit well with a lot of users. The backlash was hard to ignore, and people complained about how Apple's obsession with thinness was making their laptops inconvenient for day-to-day use. It was another sign of Apple's growing disconnect between design and user needs, and it echoed frustrations seen with the butterfly keyboard and Touch Bar. But as if these problems weren't enough, Apple's reliance on Intel chips also held the MacBook back during the 2010s. At first, Intel processors provided solid performance for everyday tasks, and it seemed like a safe choice. However, as the technology advanced, Apple's dependency on Intel became a serious liability. The problem started when Intel began to struggle to innovate. With each new generation of chips, it felt like progress was stalling. Competitors, especially in the realm of PCs, were pushing boundaries with faster processors and better energy efficiency, while Apple remained held back by Intel's slower upgrades. Users started to notice the performance gap, especially for tasks that demanded more power, like video editing or graphic design. The MacBook, once celebrated for its capability, began to lag behind. Apple's commitment to thinness continued to drive design choices that compromised performance. The ultra-slim design meant that heat dissipation was a constant challenge. As a result, MacBook Pros would throttle their performance to keep from overheating, leaving users with a laptop that struggled to keep up with their needs. It was disheartening for those who relied on these laptops for intensive work, reinforcing the idea that Apple was sacrificing performance for design. The writing was on the wall. While other laptop manufacturers were innovating with new architectures and custom chips, Apple was stuck in a rut, forced to make the most of Intel's incremental improvements. Users began to feel like they were living in the past, while competitors raced ahead, leaving the MacBook lineup at a standstill. Eventually, the frustration reached a tipping point. Even Apple knew they needed to change course. After a rough decade of design mishaps and performance compromises, Apple finally took a bold step to bring new life into MacBooks by introducing their M-series chips. The transition marked a significant turning point for the entire lineup and addressed many of the issues that plagued MacBooks throughout the 2010s. When Apple unveiled the M1 chip in 2020, the excitement was clear. The custom silicone was a game changer, combining power and efficiency in a way that Intel simply couldn't match. Suddenly, the MacBook transformed from a laptop that struggled to perform into a powerhouse capable of handling demanding tasks without breaking a sweat. Users were blown away with the impressive speed, longer battery life, and seamless multitasking capabilities that the M1 brought to the table. The M1 chip wasn't just about raw performance, it was a complete reimagining of what the MacBook could be. With integrated graphics and unified memory architecture, it allowed the laptop to run intensive applications like video editing software and games that were once unthinkable for such a slim device. The MacBook once again became a reliable choice for creatives and professionals alike, regaining its status as an industry leader. The shift to Apple's own silicone meant that the company had more control over the entire design process. It could optimize performance for the MacBook specifically, leading to innovations like the fanless design of the M1 MacBook Air, which kept the laptop silent while still running cool. The focus on user experience returned to the forefront, demonstrating that Apple was finally listening to customer needs. It's clear that Apple learned some hard lessons along the way. Missteps like the poorly received butterfly keyboard, the gimmicky touch bar, and over-reliance on Intel chips highlight the importance of balancing innovation with practicality. Apple's desire for thinness shouldn't come at the expense of user experience, and the backlash from devoted customers showed just how crucial it is to prioritize functionality in their designs. But what do you guys think? Did any of you own a MacBook in the 2010s and were affected by these issues? Make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments below.